I call to order the meeting of the Township Committee of the Township of Morris for Wednesday, July 21st, 2021. We held our closed session at 5 p.m. and this is our public session at 7 p.m. Both adequate and electronic notice of this meeting as required by the Open Public Meetings Act has been satisfied and a statement certifying same will be executed. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mr. Gyorfy?
Here.
Mr. Ravitz?
Here.
Mr. Mancuso?
Here.
Mrs. Wilson?
Here.
Mayor Grayzel?
Here. I'll let everybody join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the
and to the republic
for which it
for
stands,
which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Voice count. Very good. Okay. Thank you, everyone. The first item of business tonight is approval of minutes from the June 16th, 2021 regular and closed and the June 14th, 2021 special meeting. Will somebody move those, please?
As circulated, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Second. Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much. Next on our agenda is a proclamation recognizing Morris Township Open Space Chair Richard Watson and Parks Recreation Director Bill Fulch for 15 years of dedicated service and acquiring open space properties in the township. And they are both here tonight live in person, so I'm going to step down to the microphone and we're going to do the presentation there. Sure. Yeah, both of you can stand up. As long as we're good right there.
Screen right there.
We're on this. There we go. Very good. You should look at
Look straight.
look at the screen. Okay, very good. So this,
We can see you.
very good. This is our first Zoom presentation. Up to my right is Rick Watson, former committee man, former mayor of Morris Township. First elected in 1987, served 20 years as a township committee man. Bill Fulch, our director of recreation, to my left here, started working for us 15 years ago? 15 years ago. So we have a legacy in Morris Township of preserving open space. Almost 27% of our municipality is preserved. And we owe some of that to the parks that are within our community that we inherited when we all came on board, but we have very active open space program in our township. We put aside money towards an open space trust fund every year, and then we use that money to purchase lands. These two gentlemen who are with me tonight are part of the legacy of preserving open space in our township. Rick Watson has been the chair of our open space committee for how many years, Rick? 30 years. Wow. Okay, so that includes time on the committee as well as after he retired from the township committee. And Bill obviously has been on there for 15 years as well. We are so grateful for the two of you for everything that you've done, Rick, for 30 years of preserving open space. We have a proclamation that we are going to present to them. Let me read it into the record for everybody. This is a proclamation recognizing Morris Township Open Space Chair Richard Watson and Parks and Recreation Director William Fulch for 15 years of dedicated service, acquiring open space properties for the township. Whereas the preserving open space has long been a significant priority of the Township of Morris, and whereas the township has over 25% of its lands dedicated as open space, and through the leadership of Open Space Chairman Richard Watson and Parks and Recreation Director William Fulch, have worked to identify open space parcels and make recommendations to the Township Committee for the purchase or preservation of properties for open space. And whereas over the past 15 years, Mr. Watson and Mr. Fulch have shepherded the purchase and preservation of open space parcels that include the Lupo Tract of 10 acres, Baker Farm, 6 acres, Valley View Preserve Phase 1, 21.5 acres. The park track, 23 acres with some assistance from the County Park Commission. Prescott Road Field, 15 acres. And a second phase, phase 2 of the Valley View Preserve purchase, 7.5 acres. Whereas Richard Watson and William Falsh have worked tirelessly for acquisition and improvement of lands for recreation, conservation, and open space purposes for the betterment of the township and its residents. And whereas those efforts have been beneficial to the residents of Morris Township for recreation fields, hiking trails, passive recreation, and a community garden. And now, therefore, the members of the Township Committee do hereby honor and extend our deepest thanks and gratitude to Morris Township Open Space Chair Richard Watson and Parks and Recreation Director William Falsh for their significant efforts, and in recognition of their spirit, dedication, and commitment to the Township of Morris, and further encourage all residents of the Township of Morris to acknowledge their devotion to preserving open space for all the citizens of the Township of Morris. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I have one for you.
Thank you.
One for you. Thank you very much. Would each of you like to say something?
Want me to get a photo with you all?
Sure.
All right. We'll put it on the Township website.
Let me stand in. Yeah, why don't you want to open that up?
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much.
Good, thanks. Please say a few
I
words.
defer to Mr. Watson.
Okay, I'll go first.
Look at the screen.
I don't know which way to face.
There you go.
Okay, the world of Zoom. Okay, well, thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies, for this recognition. You didn't have to do this because doing the work of Open Space Committee is reward in itself. I look around the town every time I go around it, and I see a lot of things that were preserved that might not have been had we not done the things that we did. But I do want to say that this is not a single person or two-person job. This is a team effort, and I want to thank everyone who served on the Township Committee for the past 30 years that we've had this program, and those present now. This is a wonderful program. It's not partisan. It's pleasant. It's a lot of fun to go around the township and take a look at all these sites and enjoy and appreciate what we have. In closing, I would say that if you asked me what were the best things that I had a hand in the 20 years I was on the Township Committee, I would have to say the very best thing that we did was selecting this man as chairman of the Parks Department, as head of our parks. He has been wonderful, fountain of energy, brought us to levels of achievement that I never thought were possible. So, Bill, let me turn it over to you.
Well, I'd like to ditto the comment about a team approach. I have other members of the team. I feel a little unusual accepting the recognition because we have a great team here in the township, and it's been wonderful working with the mayors and the township committee members over the years to bring these parcels not only into our ownership or into our control, but also to get the public involved in them. We have some wonderful volunteers who are out there working on our trail systems now, involved in the community garden, and some of the things that have been reaped the benefit of the vision that Mr. Watson and the members of the Open Space Committee have had. So it's been my pleasure to work with Mr. Watson and those members and in our team here at the township to make sure that all happens and we get the public out into these great open spaces. They are really hidden secrets of the township. We have a wonderful county park system. We're linking into many of those parks. We also have our own special places that we've been able to acquire and really start to utilize on a public basis. So thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Let me just add one more thing, that every month we've been doing this for a few years now, recognizing somebody in the community, shining a light on the good that people do for others in our community. And usually those are people who are more out in the public, Rick Watson's a volunteer. They're volunteers, they're organizations. But I'm very happy to be able to give that recognition to one of our employees tonight because they usually work behind the scenes. But our employees here in Morris Township work tirelessly for the community. You often don't see it. You don't often see it or see them or hear from them. But they do a lot of hard work and are dedicated to our community, our municipality, our residents. And I'm very happy to be able to recognize Bill tonight in that regard. So thank you so much, Bill. Thank you for everything else you do for the community as head of Parks and Recreation, the pools, the trails, the fields, everything that goes on under your careful watch. We very much appreciate it. Thank you so much, everybody. One more round of applause.
And Mayor, I just want to add, as someone who grew up in the township and riding bikes on the trails and going to the parks and going to the pool, I'm a community garden member now. I walk the trails all the time. All the open space that's been acquired over the past 30 and 15 years with Bill. I mean, that is why people stay here so long in Morris Township. Not a lot of people get up and move, and we're a very desirable town for people to move to. And it's because of all the hard work that you both have been put in over the years, and just there's decades. People down the road will enjoy all of this preserved land because of all the work you did. So thank you so much for all that hard work. It'll pay volumes and dividends for decades to come.
Very good. And any other comments from Township Committee members? I have a feeling Mr. Mancuso would like to say something.
Just when I left the Township Committee for the first time in 1987, Rick took my seat and kept it for 20 years. I had nothing to do with hiring Bill, but I have been in Parks and Recreation most of the time since he's been here, and I have nothing but the finest things to say about him. So when Mr. Watson decided to leave, that's when I came back for Peter too. And I'm doing 11 years now after the first 9. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mayor, I would just add that I'm so appreciative, and I know everyone is, of the open space land that we have in the recreation. It's just such a great resource for our community. So appreciated, and I appreciate all the work that went into bringing us to this point. So thank you so much.
And I'd like to certainly echo what my colleagues have said. I've gotten to know Bill my first year on Parks and Recreation with Peter, and he's a pleasure to work with. I don't think I've ever really known someone quite as knowledgeable as Bill is about the township and how the Parks and Recreation works, and just the wonderful open space that we have here really is a hidden gem of the community. And I've gotten to know Rick through the Parks and Rec Committee, and it's a pleasure working with him and being able to hear some of the things that he's done in his tenure. And, congratulations to both of you. Well-deserved accolades.
Thank you, bud.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Rick, I hope we have your leadership on open space for many years to come. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're more than welcome to stay for the next 3 hours.
Very good. Next on our agenda, we have a recognition of 2 Eagle Scouts. We had 1 last month, and we have 2 more this month. I am so very happy that life is getting back to normal, and we are recognizing our young men and women for the good work that they are doing to achieve the ranks of Eagle Scout and other ranks. And I am looking forward to doing a public presentation to these 2 gentlemen in a week. I would like to read a letter from the Township Committee to the 2 young men. And dear Jack and Joseph, on behalf of the Township Committee, we congratulate you on receiving the Eagle Scout Award, the highest honor of Boy Scouts. Over the years, the Eagle Scout Award has come to signify diligence, high moral standards, and love of country. We are delighted to join your family, friends, and fellow Scouts in commending you on this tremendous accomplishment. The Township Committee knows What a long road this has been for you, completing an extensive service project and passing a board review. The admirable qualities you have developed during this journey will help guide you throughout your life. We are always proud of the young people in our community and are especially proud of the contributions you have made. Jack and Joseph, please accept our congratulations on this important achievement. And I will be delivering at the public ceremony a plaque for you. And have we raised them to panelists in case they want to jump on and say anything?
I do not. You're going to see Pizzimenti and Lake.
You don't have to say anything, but if you do want to add something, that's fine. Here's an example of presentation. We have a framed plaque here in recognition and congratulations to the Boy Scouts and
Lake and Pizzimenti. And there was a Leanne also on the my off day one.
And if any of you two young men who are out there would like to raise your hand if you have anything to say, again, you don't have to, but please feel free to do so.
I think I'm unmuted. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
I thank you so much for the recognition. And I want to echo what everybody said about Mr. Folsch. He was so great to work with in helping our, the Eagle Scout project. So many people have had such an impact on these kids' journey to Eagle Scout. Thank you very much.
Very good. And I should have said that the Eagle Scout project that you both worked on is launching a new hiking trail in Morris Township on the Valley View property, the piece of property that we are just speaking about in the open space portion of the meeting.
I think they're different.
What's that?
Separate projects.
Separate projects. All right. I didn't look at the second one. And the second project was? Okay. So that was Jack Lake's project. I'm sorry, let me open up Joseph's project and let you know that his project was the beautification of Lake Road Field and Butterworth Field. He and the volunteers who helped him install the garden bed and seating at the entrance to Lake Road Field. And he also worked with volunteers to spread 3 truckloads of engineered wood fiber throughout the playgrounds at Butterworth Field to ensure the safety for the children who use that. Joseph, are you on? No?
Yeah, they have to unmute.
So if Joseph, if you'd like to say something, you can unmute yourself. But if not, that's fine. We are very happy that both of you were able to come on Zoom tonight and recognize you in public. And again, I look forward to seeing you at the formal ceremony up in Stanhope at the Boy Scout Village. So thank you to both Joseph and Jack for that. Let's give a virtual round of applause to them. I would like to add one more thing to both of you boys. We just did, prior to the Boy Scout recognition, we did a recognition, and we do this every month, of people who give back to the community. I urge you that this not be the end to your involvement in community. This not be the end to how you give back to others. I urge you to continue the good things that you've learned as Eagle Scouts, take them throughout your life. And when the time comes for you to raise a family and settle down in a community, that you get involved, be part of that community, and give back and teach your children how to give back as well. So thanks to both of you. Thanks to your parents for all the time they spent getting you to this point, and their dedication to both of you and seeing that your community projects were fulfilled. Thank you again. Okay, next on the agenda, we have our first round of public comment and inquiry. We have 2 rounds on our agenda every meeting. This is the first one, and we will have another one after we do the ordinances and resolutions. So if there's anybody out there who would like to speak, please raise your hand. Mr. Kevin McNally? Very good. Mr. McNally.
Thanks, Jeff, Mr. Mayor, and Tim Quinn for letting me speak.
Kevin,
Hopefully everybody.
Yeah, Kevin, can you first give us your name and official address?
Sure. Sorry. Yes. Kevin McNally, currently live at 13 Franklin Place, Morristown, and was a resident of Morris Township, Barbara and I, and raised our children for 35 years between Fairchild for 6 years and 29 years over on Fox Chase. So, the McNally family would like to thank the entire governing body for your support for the dedication of the Captain Brian McNally Field over in Cromwell Hills on June 19th. It was a very special moment, humbling in a lot of ways and hard to do for us, but it was very, very well attended and very well appreciated. In particular, I'd like to thank a few people, in particular, Tim Quinn, who, although I knew before, but Tim is just a heck of an employee and a great friend. He did a lot of work both on Saturday the 19th, as well as certainly before. Tim Hanfeld, we've known Tim forever, pretty much. Matter of fact, our son had his Eagle Court of Honor the same day as Tim's back, more than a few years ago. Bill, who just got recognized in the Parks Committee, was a huge part of it. And of course, Mark, who did an amazing job as the MC and was on a lot of conference calls over the last, say, 5 months. So it really was a great event for the entire community, and shows. Jeff, you were just talking about giving back to the community, right? Our son certainly did. I spent 3 years on the rec committee back in about 1991 or 2 or 3, somewhere around that. And then, 9.5 years on the planning board as an alternate. So we love Morris Township. It's a great place to raise a family. We, that's our home really in a lot of ways. So thanks to the entire committee. Sorry I didn't talk to a few of you, that Saturday. It was pretty hectic for us. So, but again, thank you.
You're very welcome, Kevin. Thank you for coming on to thank us. But the honor was all ours, all ours for sure. And we are so happy to be able to do that.
And thank you, Kevin and Barbara, for all the work you both did behind the scenes too, reaching out to various groups and organizations. And like I said, we're just so delighted to be able to have Brian as a part of for the township's lives, in Cromwell for, decades and decades to come.
Yeah, it was nice. It was a good turnout by the community to have Mrs. Murphy there, the priest, the colonel from the state police. So it was it came out probably better than any of us thought, Mark. So again, thanks for all your support, and also congratulations to Bill and Rick for the award this evening.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. Thanks for coming on tonight.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, folks. See you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
Is there anybody else from the public you see out there? Seeing nobody else from the public, will somebody move that we close the public portion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Next, we have ordinance for public hearing and final consideration. I will turn it over to our attorney, Mr. Carlson, to read into the record 18-21.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 4 ordinances up for public hearing and final consideration tonight. The first is 18-21, amending Chapter 57, Land Development, Article 37 of the Code of the Township of Morris. These are amendments that are required by NJDEP related to stormwater management.
Very good. Yes.
I'll offer the ordinance.
Second.
Very good. So 18 and 19 go together. And before we open it up to the public, we have a couple words from our engineer, Jim Slate, who's going to be off screen, but you'll hear his voice.
Yes, so just one minor correction I just want to get on the record, or actually two corrections. So in ordinance 1821, it mentions section 95-165 stormwater control, and it actually should be 57 in place of 95. So it should read 57-165, just for the record. And then Kathy Wilson and I were taking a look at some things, and we noticed some wording that got dropped out in section 4 under M. And I'm just going to read that entire, paragraph. It's just a couple sentences into the record, but it says, any stormwater management measures authorized under this ordinance shall require a stormwater access and maintenance agreement to ensure the facilities are properly maintained. The stormwater access and maintenance agreement shall be recorded with the Morris County Clerk, and a complete copy of the recorded document. It ends right there, but the following wording should be added to the end of that sentence. The recorded document shall be provided to the municipality. And essentially, that's just making sure that the developer, after they record that document with the county clerk, sends us a recorded copy so we have it for our records. So as the township attorney mentioned, this is a requirement from DEP to update our stormwater ordinances. 1821 is the main body from NJDEP. It covers major development. It's pretty similar to our stormwater ordinance, which is in place right now. Probably about 8 or 10 years ago, DEP, as part of our wastewater management plan, required us to update our stormwater ordinance. So a majority of this has been in place, and the township's been, following that. But there's some new language added in related to green infrastructure. That's more popular these days, and just pushing for more of that stuff. Where we're talking about, green roofs and getting more away from conventional detention basins and more swales and wetlands to help improve stormwater management and water quality. On 1921 is a carryover. That's an amendment to Chapter 57, our grading permits, and that handles minor development. We've been practicing this for a number of years, that basically if a homeowner puts in more than 500 square feet of new impervious coverage, we require stormwater management to offset increases in runoff to make sure that neighbors' properties don't experience, flooding if a neighbor happens to add some new impervious coverage, be it an addition or a driveway. So that's beyond of what's required by the EPA. I think these rules originate from, but as I mentioned, the township's been doing that. We added that language to the grading permit since it would be covered in that section of the ordinance for minor development, 500 square feet of impervious or more. So I don't know if the township committee has any particular questions, but it's it's fairly straightforward. I think if someone would read this, it seems a little more complicated. It's fairly involved with what's required, but if you have any questions, I can answer them for you.
Very good. So just for clarity of the record, the two amendments just related to 1821. There are no amendments to 1921?
1921, no changes to that.
1921.
Correct.
Okay, very good. So was it Mr. Mancuso who moved the ordinance? Is that correct?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso, can I ask you to retract your initial move and then move it again, if that's the appropriate term, move it again with the changes outlined by Mr. Slate?
I would offer the ordinance for final vote with the outlines included by Mr. Slate.
Very good. Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Very good. Do any of the township committee members have a question before I open it up to the public hearing?
I would just like to clarify with Mr. Slate what we talked about. There is a model ordinance that was issued by NJDEP, and one of the things I was interested in that is that it requires the towns to to basically send the stormwater plan for each application and record it with the county. And that is so our ordinance talks about recording it with the county clerk, and that is basically equivalent to recording it on the deed, because that's the main thing that you can register with the county clerk, right?
That's correct. They're in charge of, recording documents such as this for against deeds and properties.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, I will open it up, since this is a public hearing on the ordinance. I will open it up to the public for any questions or comments on ordinance 1821. If you have a comment or question, raise your hands. Seeing none, will somebody move that we close public commentary?
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Madam Clerk, roll call on 1821, please.
Mr. Gyorfy,
Yes.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Grayzel.
Yes. I, Jeffrey Grayzel, Mayor, declare the ordinance adopted and finally passed, approve the same, and direct the clerk publish proper notice thereof in the newspaper and to record the ordinance in the proper place. Mr. Slate just gave us a background on 1921, but I am going to turn it over to Mr. Carlson to read it into the record.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance 1921, this is an ordinance amending Chapter 57, Land Development. This is the companion ordinance to 1821, and it also contains amendments that are required by NJDEP related to stormwater.
Very good. Will somebody move 1921, please?
So moved.
Second.
Very good. So before I open it up to the public hearing, do any of the Township Committee members have a question regarding 1921? Seeing none, I'll open it up to the public. For anybody who has a question or comment regarding Ordinance 1921, please raise your hand.
Mayor,
Anybody?
I have one question.
Sure, go ahead.
So part of the process, the part of the approval process here is that our stormwater management ordinance has to be, run through the county for approval, and then I guess it's registered with NJDEP. My question is, do both of these ordinances get forwarded to the county for approval, or just the first one, 1821?
I believe that DEP is mainly concerned with the first one, but all ordinances get sent to the county regardless, so they both will be going to the county. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes, we would send it to the county as well.
Both of them. Thank you.
Yes.
Very good, thank you. So seeing nobody from the public, will somebody move that we close public commentary?
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, very good. Madam Clerk, roll call on 1921, please.
Mr. Gyorfy,
Yes.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Grayzel.
Yes. I, Jeffrey Grayzel, Mayor, declare the ordinance adopted and finally passed, approve the same, and direct that the clerk publish proper notice thereof in the newspaper and to record the ordinance in the proper place. Mr. Carlson, 2021, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance modifying and amending Article 32, Historic Preservation Commission, Section 57-159, Establishment, Membership, Powers, and Duties, to amend sections B, G, and H to add sections I, J, and K, and L. This is modifying the membership requirements of the Historic Preservation Commission and listing of historic properties in the appendix.
Very good. Would Mr. Quinn or Mr. Slate like to comment on the ordinance, what its purposes and such?
I can do it, Jim. Mr. Mayor, there's two parts of it. The first part is we have Class A members, Class B members, and Class C members. members, they both deal with some type of expertise with historic preservation. What this will allow is for a Class A member or a Class B member, where we were restricted to only one member that may live outside of Morris Township or have that type of expertise needed by the Historic Preservation Commission. It'll give the governing body the authority to have 2 members for Class A and or Class B. However, the majority of 5 will still be Class C members. And then it's updating the list of historic properties that are part of the appendix. And that would have to be reviewed. And those properties are then flagged in our GIS system. So if they do certain types of improvements, they're going to need a review by the Historic Preservation Commission.
Very good. Thank you so much. Has anybody moved 2021 yet?
I'll move it.
Very good. Thank you.
Second.
Second. Very good. Do any Township Committee members have a question about 2021 before I open it up to the public?
I don't have a question, but I just have a comment. I know this ordinance has been a long time in coming, and I'm really glad to see it at this point. I think the membership additions are a really good thing for our HPC, and the job of boiling down the historic properties from what could have been more than 1,000 to 179 it's just a huge accomplishment. And our HPC has created pictures and text and information about these properties online. Just an excellent job on this whole thing. And I'm so glad we've come to this point.
Yeah, Mayor, just to add to that, I just want to thank all the volunteers in the Historic Preservation Commission for all their hard work over the years. And thank you to our professionals for working with them on this, getting this ordinance to this point.
Yes.
Thank you. And with that, I will open it up to the public for comment and questioning on Ordinance 2021.
Mr. Schmidt.
Mr. Schmidt.
Chair of HPC.
Who is that? Chair of HPC?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Chairman of HPC. Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
You have to unmute.
Unmute.
And then give us your name and your address, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Charles Schmidt, 62 Alexandria Road, Morris Township, and chairman of the Historic Preservation Commission. Very briefly, I just wanted to thank Tim Quinn, Jim Slate, Kathy Wilson, Rich Aller, Steve Warner, and many others for their help and guidance in getting us to this point. As Kathy pointed out, it's been a while. It's been a little over 2 years. But every time that we've reviewed it, it's gotten better and stronger. And we have finally distilled, as Kathy pointed out, 1,000 potential historic properties down to 179 that really matter to the township. And those are the ones that are now subject to the ordinance. So with that, really nothing much else to say. We did document those in the 5 photo albums that Kathy had also mentioned. So I will just stop there and thank you all for your support in getting to this point.
Thank you, Chuck.
Mrs. Member.
We also have Mrs. Member. If you would unmute yourself and state your name and address, please.
Thank you. Marlene Member, 63 Independence Way. I was just interested in where do you find a copy of the listing of these historic properties? Mrs. Wilson mentioned it, but I didn't catch what she said.
I believe it is on our website. If you go to the homepage and you click on government, and then you click on Historic Preservation Commission, I believe it's on that page, on the HPC page on our website.
Okay, thank you very much.
On the Historic Preservation page?
Yeah, but we're posting it now that it's been adopted.
Okay, so now that it has been adopted, we're going to be posting it on the website. But there is a lot of history already on our website. As Committeewoman Wilson stated, if you go to our website, hover over the government and click on the Historic Preservation Committee, there's a lot of information there. And I'd like to add As Mr. Gyorfy stated, and Committeewoman Wilson, thank you for the dedication of the members on that committee. We talked earlier about the open space in Morris Township, but another beautiful thing about our community is the history. And thank you to the dedicated members of HPC for all they do to help document that history of our beautiful community.
I would like to just add one last thing. If you go to the HPC page, there are photo albums that include pictures of houses from different historic neighborhoods, you know, some of which are not on this official 179 property list, but there's the photo albums and the text about other, you know, several of the historic neighborhoods in our town. So there's a lot of information there, and I guess this ordinance will be posted after tonight.
Okay, thank you very much for the information.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public like to be heard on ordinance 2021?
I move we close the public portion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, very good. Madam Clerk, roll call for 2021, please.
Mr. Gyorfy,
Yes.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Grayzel.
Yes. I, Jeffrey Grayzel, Mayor, declare the ordinance adopted and finally passed, approve the same, and direct that the clerk publish proper notice thereof in the newspaper and to record the ordinance in the proper place. Mr. Carlson, please introduce 2121. It's not an introduction, but please read into the record.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance of the Township of Morris in the County of Morris and State of New Jersey, supplementing the Township Code with a new chapter entitled Chapter 205, Cannabis, Prohibition of All Classes of Businesses, so as to prohibit the operation of any class of cannabis business within its geographical boundaries, and further to supplement Section 95-8 entitled General Regulations and Restrictions of Chapter 95 entitled Zoning of the Code of the Township of Morris, so as to prohibit the use of any class of licensed cannabis businesses upon any premises in any zone in the Township of Morris. This is an ordinance designed to opt out of the 6 licensed classes of business, cannabis businesses pending the Cannabis Regulatory Commission's rulemaking, which I understand, just for the committee's benefit, is to take place on August 19th.
Correct.
I'll offer the ordinance.
Seconded.
Very good. Thank you. I'm going to put Mr. Gyorfy on the spot a little bit. He conducted an information on cannabis prior to our June meeting where we introduced the ordinance, but for the public who was not in attendance for either of those 2 meetings, I'd like to turn it over to him for a little explanation.
Thank you, Mayor. And to those who listened in last month, this may be a bit repetitive, but nonetheless, it's important for the public to know the background of how we got to where we are today. So on May 27th, the Legislation Standing Committee hosted a public information session for residents to learn more about New Jersey's new cannabis laws. Joining us were Township Administrator Tim Quinn and Township Attorney Scott Carlson. Attorney Scott Carlson provided a presentation outlining the details of the state cannabis laws. Following that presentation, the group listened to comments from the public and answered questions. Residents can watch the video recording on our Township website, and they can also review the presentation slides there. As highlighted during the session, the Cannabis Regulatory Commission's deadline to create the regulations governing the sale, cultivation, and distribution of cannabis is the same as our deadline as a municipality to decide whether or not we would like to permit certain classes of cannabis in Morris Township. Effectively, because of this, municipalities are required to adopt local ordinances prior to final regulations being promulgated. Municipalities that opt out by the August 22nd deadline have the ability to opt in at any time over the next 5 years. However, municipalities that do not opt out of certain classes by the deadline are required to permit those classes without having the ability to opt out for 5 years. The Legislation Standing Committee's recommendation at the last Township Committee meeting, after reviewing the cannabis laws with professional staff and our colleagues on the governing body, was to pass an opt-out ordinance as other neighboring towns recently had. By opting out ahead of the deadline, the township is providing itself with the most flexibilities as municipalities await final regulations from the Cannabis Regulatory Commission. Once the Cannabis Regulatory Commission issues its final regulations, The members of the governing body will complete a thorough review and provide an additional opportunity for residents to participate in this conversation. With that, again, we would recommend the opt-out for now to provide as much flexibility for our town, regardless of what side of the argument or spectrum you are on this issue. We think it's best for the township to opt out and revisit it once the regulations are published and are ready for our review.
Very good. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Gyorfy. I will open it up to the public for any questions or comments regarding 2121.
Mayor, before we ask for public comments, may I speak?
Yes, please.
I think it's really important that we highlight what Deputy Mayor Gyorfy has said, that by opting out, we can opt back in at any time once we deem it favorable for our township after further input from the residents. So opting out right now does in fact provide us with the most flexibility, regardless, again, as the deputy mayor had stated, regardless of which side of the cannabis argument you fall on. I think that it's important that people understand that we as the governing body will be reviewing this in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for the record, the reason why we're discussing this is that there was a referendum on the ballot last year in 2020, a statewide referendum, and residents of the state of New Jersey passed it by about 2/3 to 1/3. And within Morris Township, the rate of acceptance of that or voting for it was even a little bit higher than that. So that's why this is under discussion. It was a state referendum, and all the municipalities around the state, each of us has to adopt some kind of ordinance relating to it now. Okay, any members of the public out there? None? Will somebody move that we close public portion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, a roll call on 2121.
Mr. Gyorfy,
Yes.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Grayzel.
Yes. I, Jeffrey Grayzel, Mayor, declare the ordinance adopted and finally passed, approve the same, and direct that the clerk publish proper notice thereof in the newspaper and to record the ordinance in the proper place. Now we're going to move on to ordinances for introduction. This is the first reading of the ordinance. We will have a second reading and public hearing at a future date. So, Mr. Carlson, ordinance 2221, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance amending Chapter 95 zoning of the Code of the Township of Morris to add Section 95-37.1 building design guidelines. This is an ordinance that adds guidelines, building design guidelines for residential and non-residential buildings.
I'll introduce the ordinance.
Have a second?
Second.
Second.
Very good. So just a little bit of background. This comes out of the planning board where Committeewoman Wilson and myself sit. This was one of my top priorities back in 2019 when I became mayor and took a seat on the planning board to implement design standards within Morris Township so that we are ensured that our community has a higher quality look, utilizes higher quality materials in its construction. And for example, when townhomes are built, since townhomes are what's being built most around the state, that we don't have townhomes that you see in a lot of places, but when there's multiple units in one building, that there's differentiation between those units with either color or setbacks or some other type of treatment to beautify the structures. So a lot of work went into this by the planning board. They had a subcommittee that worked on it for several months, along with our planner, Paul Phillips, and our engineer, Jim Slate. So kudos to those guys as well for bringing this to us for introduction tonight.
Member, can I say a few words? I just want to thank you and the planning board. And I know Committeewoman Wilson's also on the planning board, but this kind of, I see, like you stated last month or the month beforehand, but this kind of goes hand in hand with our land use reform initiative too. just ensuring that Morris Township continues to have a cohesive, set of standards for the future to ensure that, we're talking about our open space, we're talking about our historic preservation, but also, having these design standards is critical to make sure that we have the highest quality of buildings for our residents down the line. So thank you for your work putting this together.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to second that. Thank you, Mayor, for your work, and also our planning board chairman, Ed Benoit, and many of our professionals as well. And also just for the benefit of the public, if you read this ordinance, the guidelines or the standards that are contained therein they're strongly encouraged, but they're not absolutely required. And part of what I like about this is that it promotes discussion, at the planning board level without backing anyone into a total requirement. So personally, I think that's a very good, another good feature of this ordinance.
Great. Thank you. Okay, with that, we will. We're not opening this up to the public, but this ordinance will have a second reading at our next meeting on August 18th at 7 p.m. So we'll have a second reading there. So I'll turn it over to Madam Clerk for a roll call on the introduction of 2221.
Mr. Gyorfy,
Yes.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Grayzel.
Yes. And again, we will have the second reading of this ordinance on August 18th. Now I'll turn it over to Mr. Carlson for 2321. If you could read that into the record, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance amending Chapter 9, Article 1, Section 9-3, Membership, Terms of Office, to provide a one-year term of office for student members of the Environmental Commission, to set an age requirement for those student members, to require criminal background checks for Environmental Commission members, and require Environmental Commission members to sign a code of conduct. This is just simply amending the membership in terms of requirements to provide a structure to accommodate student members of the Environmental Commission.
Very good. And this is an ordinance that we picked up from another municipality. I think a couple other municipalities do this already. They allow non-adult, or I should say young adult teenagers on their environmental commissions in order to do some volunteer work for the commission and participate. And we are deciding to try it out here. I'm very excited about it and looking forward to our first applicants. Any other comments? Kathy, would you like to say something about it?
I'm happy to see it as well. We've been talking for months about how to include student members on the Environmental Commission, and there are legalities involved, and this ordinance lays out those parameters. So I'm really glad to see us moving forward with this, and I welcome the thought of students getting involved in future activities.
Very good. So will somebody move 2321, please? Mrs. Wilson? Thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call on 2321, please.
Mr. Gyorfy,
Yes.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Grayzel.
Yes. And again, this ordinance will have a second reading and public hearing on August 18th at 7 p.m. Mr. Carlson, ordinance 2421, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance repealing Chapter 165, Section 165-18, Prohibited Acts Exceptions, to be consistent with Pamphlet Law 2021, Chapter 38, and amending Chapter 367, Section 367-3, Alcoholic Beverages and Narcotics Prohibited Exception, to prohibit cannabis, cannabis-related products, tobacco smoking, and vaping in public parks, playgrounds, and other public places. This is basically updating our code to reflect parts of the recent cannabis legislation concerning enforcement provisions.
Very good. And since Mr. Thank you so much. And since Mr. Quinn led the effort on bringing this ordinance to this point, I'd like to turn it over to him for a little background.
Thank you, Mayor. There's actually two sections of it. Back in 2001, the state legislature passed legislation signed by the governor that allowed municipalities to adopt ordinances that prohibited the possession or consumption of alcohol by juveniles on public property, with a few exceptions such as religious observances or permission of the parent. This was to deal with alcohol abuse by juveniles, mostly like when there are underage parties, where police would go there and they would find, 20 or 30 juveniles and cases of alcohol, those kinds of things that they could take some action. There was no enforcement action against the juveniles other than being able to bring them in with their parents and working with the parents to try corrective action. In the cannabis legislation, this bill this authorization was repealed by the state legislature and signed by the governor. So to be consistent with the law, we recommending that we remove this from our ordinance. The police department has already been following the guidelines from the Attorney General's office and the Morris County Prosecutor's office. And since this legislation was adopted, they have, when responding to parties and things like that, they can no longer take any type of enforcement action for the possession of alcohol by juveniles on private property. The second one is we already in the township prohibit the possession of alcohol on our public playgrounds, public places, swim pools, and this will add in, besides smoking, vaping products, vaping, and cannabis. So you cannot consume alcohol or cannabis or use vaping products on our public parks, swim pools, or public township places.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Any questions from members of the Township Committee? No. So will somebody move ordinance 2421, please?
So moved. No?
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call on 2421.
Mr. Gyorfy,
Yes.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Grayzel.
Yes. This ordinance 2421 will have a second reading on August 18th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Again, thank you to Mr. Quinn for his work in pulling all of this together, 2421, to update our code. Next, we have resolutions 147-121 through 167-21. We do not have any additional resolutions coming out of closed session, so those are the resolutions up for adoption tonight. I guess that is 21 of them, if I count correctly. Are there any resolutions that anybody needs removed?
I will offer all the resolutions, Mr. Mayor.
As a block, sir? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Any questions? Yes, I was going to say, any questions about any of the resolutions?
Yes, I have a question about 158 and 159, Southgate Parkway road improvements and Woodland Avenue road improvements. I noticed those are grant applications for municipal aid, and I'm just wondering, this is authorizing those grants to be filed. And I'm wondering, I know we do this every year. I'm just wondering when do we find out if these grants are funded?
In November.
Okay. And typically we get one, right? Not two, or am I wrong on that?
Historically, we've gotten one. I know in my 11 years, there was 1 year we didn't get any, but we've never gotten more than one.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Anybody else? So we have the resolutions moved. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Very good. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mr. Gyorfy,
Yes.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Grayzel.
Yes. Next on our agenda is general business correspondence as circulated on a consent calendar as attachment A. Will somebody move that?
So moved.
So moved.
Very good. One of you be a second?
Second, Charlie.
Thank you so much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next are standing committee reports. Standing committees are our oversight committees. We have 2 township committee members sit on 15 standing committees that we have in our municipality. Actually, it's 14 standing committees, I believe, in our municipality. And we go around the horn. If there are any updates from a particular standing committee, the person on that standing committee can give an update. So I will let Committeewoman Wilson go first tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I have one standing committee update that would be from the Energy, Environment, and Sustainability Standing Committee. Our Environmental Commission, as usual, has been very active and productive over the last month. A few highlights. Our EC sponsored a site plan review webinar on June 22nd. Doing site plan reviews is a really important responsibility of our Environmental Commission. And in fact, it is the only responsibility that is specifically cited in the statute that establishes environmental commissions around our state. REC is very well aware of this responsibility, and they've taken steps to improve their ability to handle the site plan review process well. They, like I said, they held this webinar on June 22nd. I'd like to thank our EC Chair, Buzz Kenny, for planning and organizing this workshop. And I'd like to thank Tim Quinn, our administrator, for handling the registration and the Zoom logistics. This webinar is found on the EC portion of the Township website, and I encourage everyone to check it out, especially members of anyone from REC who was not there, and also our Land Use Board members, most of whom I believe have not yet reviewed it. Very useful for volunteers in those positions. A comment about our participation in the Sustainable Jersey Certification Program. This is a well-known and well-respected program around our state. About 40% of the towns in New Jersey have received certification through this program. Our current EC members are really very enthusiastic about working to obtain the certification. Certification not only provides public recognition of our town's accomplishments, it also makes available additional grant monies to fund our efforts. So our REC is working actively to meet the certification requirements by June 2022. And a first step, in fact, the only required action, is to formally establish a green team. So there are various ways that can be structured. The EC will be discussing this at their August meeting. And based on their recommendation, the input of our standing committee members, professionals, and others, I do anticipate a resolution or an ordinance recommending the establishment of a green team at our August Township Committee meeting. And I'm very happy that we've introduced the ordinance establishing student associate members. Good step forward. And finally, I just wanted to highlight that mark your calendars, the Fall Festival is coming up in October 3rd. It's a Sunday. This is the first time ever that I'm aware of that our Environmental Commission plans to host a booth and participate. The event, as you may know, draws thousands of people from across Morris County. This is a great opportunity for our EC to share with the public all the great things they're doing, and they're preparing for this with great enthusiasm. So more info to come in the days ahead. And that's it for me. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Ravitz.
Surprisingly, not a lot from me this month. Nothing substantive to report on infrastructure. Parks and Recreation, we still have some pool memberships available. So if residents want to join in on the seasonal pool fund, you just sign right up. Just want to offer up also kudos to the management and staff who make the township pools such a great experience for residents. Also, stay tuned for an announcement of a ribbon cutting ceremony for the newly opened pickleball courts and a resident meeting we're trying to put together for the renovation of the Collinsville Park. That we're also looking to do that sometime in late August or early September. That's it for me. Back to you, Mayor.
Very good. One question for you, Mr. Ravitz. With the pool memberships, there are prorated memberships, correct, for the rest of the summer?
Yes, prorated.
What's that?
There's an August rate.
There's an August rate. So starting August, yeah. So if you sign up now for August, there is a special August rate for the rest of the season.
Correct.
At a reduced price. So for those who are interested, it is a reduced price for starting August 1st.
Oh, one last thing, as long as we're still on the topic of pools, next year there will be a concerted effort, to make the pool membership pandemic proof. We're looking into options that would, if there is for whatever reason, a restriction on memberships, that all residents who would like a membership will get at least some pool time. So more on that as it develops.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Mancuso.
Thank you, sir.
Standing Committee reports.
Yep. Our audit has come in. It has not been totally ratified yet, but I'd like to give credit to our Chief Financial Officer, Francine DeAngelis, for having the 4-year of a perfect report with no corrective actions, etc. We suffered for many, many years because of the fact that we didn't always get 100% on our audit, but since she has been here, it has been absolutely phenomenal. State and local taxes, we have applied, and we are trying very, very hard to get us to have the deduction from our state and local income tax to the amount we had prior to, I guess it was about 2 years ago. So I look forward to that happening. James Street, money has been allocated. Looking forward to having that project done after all these years. I was delighted with the experience with the pool. We had problems early on as far as enough memberships, and then later on with guests. And with Mr. Ravitz and Mr. Quinn's help, we've certainly gotten that back into the way we'd like to have it. Looking forward to living right off Southgate Parkway. I'm looking forward to that potential grant of $750,000 from New Jersey DOT for improvements to the Southgate Parkway system. And we've accepted an award, I think it's about $90,000 for body cameras for our policemen from the state of New Jersey. And of course, we acknowledge the grant that we received from the state for distracted driving. So that's all I have for now. Thank you, sir.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mancuso. Deputy Mayor Gyorfy.
Thank you, Mayor. For the Communications Standing Committee, I'd like to report that for the 3rd year in a row, I'm happy to report our annual newsletter will be hitting mailboxes of all residents or all households with important updates and useful information for folks to look over. I appreciate all the help from Mr. Quinn and Virginia Murphy in his office on this annual project, as well as Mr. Ravitz, and I hope that our residents value the information being provided to them in this packet. This year's newsletter is one of the largest I've worked on, and there's a lot of valuable information included, specifically important recycling reminders and tips, home safety tips from our police and fire departments, highlights from Parks and Rec, upcoming events in the fall for people to mark on their calendars, and an update from the governing body. So thank you to our professionals in the administrator's office, as well as Parks and Rec and the other departments who put together information to provide to our residents right to their mailboxes. On legislation, I gave an update on the cannabis opt-out ordinance that we passed earlier, and we'll be looking out for the regulations from the Cannabis Regulatory Commission later this summer. For transportation, earlier this month, a recap of the May TAC presentation went out to residents to inform them of the mobility survey results and TAC's corresponding recommendations. If you have not seen them, I encourage you to read those, which it's available on the Township website. It's on the homepage, I believe, still. You can read the recap. And if you didn't get it in your email, I recommend you and encourage you to sign up for our municipal messenger email service. While TAC is taking a summer holiday from our normal monthly meetings, our members are still hard at work focusing on summer projects in smaller groups. Earlier this month, the driving subcommittee met with Township professionals to review edits to our drafted traffic calming policy that we hope to recommend to the Township committee in September. One of our other summer working groups is collaborating to propose an exciting opportunity for resident cyclists for later this summer, possibly in the fall. The team is proposing a Lewanika loop for bikers to follow and enjoy the east side of town. Be on the lookout for more information there, and I look forward to working with them and the Township professionals to see how we can get this going. The other group is focused on condensing maps and helpful information on trails, biking, and recreational areas in town and in the area for residents to inform themselves before they go out. And that I'll be working with them as well to see how we can consolidate all this information in one helpful place for residents to look. So TAC is hard at work, even though we're not having our regular meetings. So this way we're able to focus on these small projects. And I'm looking forward to providing an update to the governing body on their progress in the fall. That's my standing committee reports, Mayor.
Very good, thank you. And for myself, I will report on the engineering standing committee. We held a meeting this past month to review all the projects around town, and boy, the list is long. Mr. Slade and the engineers in his department are hard at work on numerous things around the municipality. I'll go over some. For those of you who live in the northwest portion of our community, Rayner Road is currently under construction. It's had a few hiccups, correct, Mr. Quinn? It's required a little extra attention by our engineering department, a little extra oversight, but that project is progressing. We held a community meeting for our next road project, I should say, on Sherman Avenue. Sherman Avenue is also going to be reconstructed after Rayner Road is done. Next in the queue are Kennedy, Gregory, and Pine Street. That's going to be after we get Sherman Avenue polished up. The work will begin on those, and we've begun surveying the residents in those areas regarding sidewalks. So we do a sidewalk survey with residents to make sure that we construct things with their input. And after that, I think Normandy Parkway is probably next in the queue.
That is correct.
That's correct. So there's a lot ongoing. We are constantly working on improving our towns. It's in addition to the seasonal repairs around town of curbing, of drainage that you might see new drains being put in, curbs being fixed, et cetera, through a seasonal contract that is also overseen by the engineering department. A couple other things that have come through the planning board that also has their oversight right now is Primrose School is moving into the old Wells Fargo Bank on Madison Avenue, taking not the whole building, but a large portion of that building. And you can see construction on Madison Avenue happening. And feel free to look up online Primrose Schools to see what they're all about. On Con Road, the old Montessori school has reopened as a daycare center, and they are doing improvements to that building as well with a small addition on the ground floor. Also oversight by the engineering department. That's just a smattering of all the things that they do on a daily basis, but a lot of work going on around town. So we had an engineering standing committee to review all that. We also had a finance standing committee that Mr. Mancuso and I sit on to review revenues and make sure that we're on target for our budget. A couple other projects that have come up. So we talked about finding funding for a couple of things, but we did have a standing committee for finance to review the finances of the municipality. And lastly, on the shared service committee, the joint court falls under shared services. We have the unfortunate happening that Harding, and we announced this previously, Harding has submitted a letter of resignation from the joint court of 5 towns. We are in a joint court with Harding and Madison and both of the Chathams. Harding is unfortunately decided to move out of the joint court. Very sad day for all of us involved. But because of that, the 4 towns have to be represented to have a clean closure with Harding. So you'll see a resolution on the agenda tonight hiring an arbitration attorney named William T. Smith for the Township of Morris, who's going to represent not just us, but the 4 towns to make sure that the exit of Harding is done cleanly and to everybody's best interest. So that's an update on standing committees from my end. And with that, we're going to go around the horn again for general commentary from Township Committee members, anything you'd like to comment on regarding things around town. So we'll start at the top again. Mrs. Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I have a couple of comments. First of all, I'd like to welcome our new clerk, Danielle Lewis. Danielle has just moved back to New Jersey from out of state, and I hope you're settling in. And I very much look forward to working with you in the future. So, and I'm glad you're here. Thank you. I wanted to comment on the so-called SALT deduction, state and local tax deduction, or the resolution that we passed. I'm very happy that we passed this resolution tonight. It's needed for anyone whose property taxes are more than $10,000, which many people's property taxes are more than $10,000 in our area. This deduction cap of $10,000, it caps that deduction, and to me this results in double taxation. So, for example, if your property taxes are $13,000, that $3,000 difference, $3,000 of it goes to property taxes, and then you're taxed by the federal government on that $3,000 as well. So to me, that's double taxation. I think it's unfair, and I think it's wrong. And I'm glad that we're calling for the repeal of the limitation on the deduction. So that's what we're advocating, and I'm glad to see that. I have 2 things that have come up that I would like to comment and remind people not to do. The first has to do with recycling. Every week I drive around and I see all the recycling bins out, and every week I always see several recycling bins that have plastic bags sticking out of them that are filled with cans and bottles and paper. And this is not good. Please do not do that. I even contributed a picture to the upcoming newsletter. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine, and it jams up the equipment. It costs time and money and aggravation. And in my opinion, I think it's the easiest, simplest thing that we can all do to make a positive contribution to our recycling efforts. Another do not do. I know we've had some issues with doggy waste bags getting thrown down toilets. This makes me remember, it's kind of a humorous slogan that I've heard our sewer department advise, PPP. The only things that go down the toilet, pee, poo, and paper. That means toilet paper, no other kind of paper. Nothing else goes down the toilet. And I also like the slogan I've heard, if in doubt, throw it out. in the garbage and not in the toilet. As a counterpoint, two things I would encourage everyone to do. One is to sign up for our Environmental Commission newsletter. They're expanding their subscriber list. It comes out toward the end of the month, and you can sign up on our website, go to homepage, then government, then Environmental Commission, and you'll see the sign up for their newsletter there. And also I would encourage everyone to attend the outdoor concerts that our Parks and Recreation are sponsoring. They're really great. They're every Tuesday in July. It's really enjoyable. And thanks to our Parks and Rec for offering that. And it's just a really wonderful community event and a great way to spend a summer evening. So I would encourage people to consider doing that. And that's it for me. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Ravitz.
Okay. Well, good evening, and thank you to the members of the public in attendance for participating in your local government. As always, government works best when the public is informed and engaged. Congratulations again to Open Space Chair Richard Watson and Parks and Recreation Director Bill Folsch for 15 years of dedicated service in acquiring open space properties. Well done. Also, congratulations to Joseph Pizzimenti and John Lake on their monumental and enviable attainment of Eagle Scout rank. Be as proud of yourselves as your family and friends are of you. And for my public commentary, I'd like to, just touch on a couple of things. First, indulge me for a moment as I talk about some numbers. Specifically, numbers released by the City of Los Angeles Department of Health Services. These are real world numbers of COVID-19 cases, which are on the upswing there. They're experiencing about 1,000 new cases of COVID per day for the last about a week or so. And of those new cases, there is a subset of them that require hospitalization. That's an important number to look at and explore. And the question is, what percentage of those people needing hospitalization for COVID-19 are fully vaccinated? That percentage, because of the large sampling, will give us a good idea of the measure of effectiveness of vaccines. The percentage of those hospitalized that have been fully vaccinated is 0%. And what does this tell us? It tells us that if a person has been fully vaccinated using the Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, or Pfizer vaccines, it's completely effective. The numbers don't lie. The debate over whether vaccines work is over. The only debate left is whether people listen to politicians, talking heads, and pundits who have a vested interest in us not meeting national vaccine goals. Second, I want to touch briefly on what being an expert means. Experts in the same field often disagree. So who does one trust? With regard to the field of medicine, the overwhelming consensus of medical doctors agree is that masks and vaccines are effective tools against COVID-19. It's inarguable. Typically, I would agree with questioning everything. However, I must include a caveat by saying that questioning of consensus of experts, those who have dedicated their lives to the study of a particular subject, by a non-expert is going to be fruitless. This is something new, and we as society never used to do that. Specialization is something humans do exceptionally well. It means that none of us have to know everything. We rely heavily on the work of others, typically experts, to move society forward. COVID-19 is not done with us. Cases are on the rise all over once again, with a significantly more contagious Delta version. And cases are expected to rapidly rise well into the autumn and winter. It's become a pandemic of the unvaccinated, but that can change at any point if some new variant emerges. Let's have some empathy for our fellow citizens and our fellow humans. let's not kick down upon the people who have less political or economic power as some of us might now enjoy. Rather, let us face up to those who profit from our division. Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ravitz. Mr. Mancuso.
Thank you very, very much, sir. I'd love
Oh, Mr. Mancuso, Mr. Mancuso, yeah, we lost you for a second. Can you just start over?
Yeah, sure. I'd like to reiterate the comments of Kathy Wilson. As you all can tell, we have a different group of people that's representing you right now. After 11 years of listening to Mrs. Emilio ask for a roll call, today we welcome Danielle Lewis as our new township clerk. We're just delighted with her. She's going to do a great job. She's keeping us all informed, and I'm very, very proud and happy to have her as part of our group. Quick congratulations to former Mayor Rick Watson and to Bill Fulch and to the 2 Eagle Scouts. And my last story is the 11-year-old Morris American Little Leaguers have won both the districts and the regionals and are now playing in the state championships down at Hamilton. Hamilton is a bit away. I think you've got to take a ferry that somebody named Sharon takes you across the River Styx to get there. It's quite a ways away from where we are. Anyway, they are in the tournament. It's going to be double elimination. It starts this Saturday. We will have a special recognition of them as we get toward next month. And also, I think our 12-year-olds have done very well too. I don't have much more information, but the 12-year-olds, if they get past the states, can get into the championship for the Little League. Escaping me where? Oh, it's in Pennsylvania. Anyway, I just think it's nice to have people who are working on this thing, all the dedicated volunteers who have been working with these children for over these years. I think we'll be able to recognize them all next month. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mancuso. Deputy Mayor Gyorfy.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, I just want to congratulate former Mayor Rick Watson and Parks and Rec Director Bill Fulch for their years of success leading our Open Space Committee. As I said before, open space is a big reason why residents stay here in Morris Township. It's why it's so desirable to move here. And having grown up riding bikes on our trails, using our parks, I know firsthand how countless families will enjoy the fruits of the Open Space Committee's labor and efforts for decades and decades to come. I'd also like to echo the other commenters to congratulate our Eagle Scouts, Joe and Jack, and thank you to both of you for choosing Township Parks and Recreation facilities to help improve through your Eagle Scout projects. And lastly, I'll also welcome Danielle to Morris Township. It's great to have you with us, and we're looking forward to having you here in the room with us in the future. So with that, I'll give it back to you, Mayor.
Very good. Thank you. And welcome Danielle as well. I was so happy with so many items on the agenda tonight. We always talk about community and giving back and moving us forward. And there was just a lot on the agenda tonight. We focused in the beginning on preserving open space. We then had a recognition of the Eagle Scouts, more community. We had one ordinance for final adoption related to historic preservation. Again, focused on our community, focused on the history of our community, and the volunteers that do that work, and adding spaces so that additional volunteers can help others in the community. We had an introduction of an ordinance relating to the Environmental Commission and adding student memberships there. Again, another group of people giving back to the community. And now we're adding students to also participate in some community involvement. We had the ordinance coming out of the planning board on
design standards and the dedicated volunteers on the planning board who spent a lot of hours on behalf of our residents to ensure that the beauty of our municipality continues for years to come. Just a lot of wonderful stuff on the agenda tonight. And I just want to thank again, like I do every time, everybody who gives back to this community. It's why we are such a wonderful place to live and raise our children, is because of the quality of the people who live here is one element of that. So just thank you to all our volunteers who are on the agenda tonight in various forms and fashions. Just thank you from the bottom of my heart for all you do for our town and for your fellow residents. I will chime in for a second on the SALT deduction, and that stands for state and local taxes, the federal tax regulation. It's an effort that has been started by, well, we've been talking about it for a while now, but our representative, Mikey Sherrill, has started a campaign called the Summer of Salt, where she's trying to bring a renewed attention to the salt deduction with all of the legislation coming out of Washington, D.C. now to try to restart our economy after COVID. Salt deduction is something that hits us here in New Jersey very, very hard. So I thank Representative Sherrill for bringing this to light, for putting a little extra effort on it. And I urge other municipalities to do the same, to bring it to light. And hopefully we can get some movement down in Washington about the double taxation of our residents here in Morris Township. I wanted to point out one other thing on the agenda. It's on the consent calendar, that there was a request to close one of the roads for a birthday party. And I just want the residents to know that that's something that they can do. We had a request for a police officer to stop by to do a meet and greet with the kids. I think that we're also going to be sending a fire truck there as well, if they have the ability to get out. But I just wanted to point that out, that it's something that we do in our town. If you do want a temporary road closure for a few hours for a party like that, please let us know. We had a couple block parties on the consent calendar too, so those happen around town. I just wanted to point that out for anybody who hasn't given that some thought, but might want to do so in the future. Okay, that's my remarks for this evening. And next on the agenda, we have our second section of public commentary for the night. And so I'll open it up to the public for any comments or questions. Please raise your hand and we'll acknowledge you. I'm looking at our technician to see if there is anybody there.
No, sir.
None. So seeing none, will somebody move that we close public portion?
So moved, Mayor.
Move we close the public portion, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Next on the agenda, consideration of monthly reports. The following reports for the month of June 2021 are on file in the office of the Township Clerk and Township Administrator. Those include tax collector, finance, police, joint court, joint library, and fire. Will somebody please move that?
As circulated.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And now I'm going to use my prerogative as mayor to reopen my public commentary, because now that I read about the joint public library, I failed to include in my public commentary a beautiful ceremony that was held a week or so ago at the library to honor Stephen Wiley, a huge figure in our community who was responsible for so much that we are all able to take advantage of. He was a driving force behind the formation of the school district that brought the communities in Morristown and Morris Township together, which I think we've all benefited from that. Driving force at the library. He led the fundraising for the addition of the newer portion of the library where the children's section is, and so much more around town. It was a wonderful ceremony, and they unveiled a life-size statue of Mr. Wiley on the front lawn of the library. So I encourage everybody to go over and take a look. If you walk in the door, they're supposedly going to have an informational plaque with the history of Mr. Wiley, but I failed to mention that in my public comments. And once I saw joint library and the monthly reports, I wanted to make sure that the public knew about that.
So thank you. Next on the agenda, claims for payment. List of bills and vouchers totaling $14,167,932.43. And a monthly reminder to the residents that we are the tax collector, not only for our town, but also for the school district, for the county, for the library. And we take those monies in and then dole them out, which is why we have bills to the school district that make that number look so big. So will somebody move payment of the bills?
As listed, sir.
Thank you. Second?
Right.
Second.
Very good. Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please, on payment of bills.
Mr. Gyorfy,
Yes.
Mr. Ravitz,
Of course.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Grayzel.
Yes.
And I'm
Thank
sorry,
you.
did we need to do a roll call on the reports for tax collector, finance, police, joint court, joint library, and fire? I heard a motion, but
We just did it. I believe we just did a voice. We did a voice vote on those.
Okay,
Those are just reports, so we do a voice vote on that.
all right, perfect. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. And with that, we've come to the end of the meeting. We are going to adjourn until August 18th, 2021 at 7 p.m. for our regular meeting, 5 p.m. closed session as usual at the municipal building. We expect that meeting will again be virtual. We're going to take a wait and see approach on how COVID is spreading in the community. Mr. Ravitz gave some commentary about that. We're hoping that possibly in September, we'll be back in person. But again, we're going to wait and see how COVID is over the next month or so. So my expectation is that we will still be on Zoom in August, but please check the website. And with that, will somebody move that we adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, sir.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Thank you, everybody.
Everyone.
See you August 18th. Good night.
Good night, everybody.